Hello everyone, welcome to this Facebook Live today where I've got the wonderful Carrie here with me. And Carrie was an incredible participant in my last group in the PCOS Protocol. And so she has kindly offered to come in and chat to you about today, just what to expect if you are wanting to sign up to the PCOS Protocol, because I know it's super hard to know what you're getting yourself in for. There are so many kind of online programs and it's like, what am I going to get? Am I going to be getting just a diet plan I have to stick to regimentally? Is it going to suit my lifestyle? Is it going to suit my family? And so I want to bring Carrie on, because what's hard for me to explain is this is not a diet plan. It's something that you've never really done before. It's about understanding what's going on in your body, and then we match you up with the right kind of, food and exercise and lifestyle treatments and supplements to help you actually reverse that. So it's probably nothing that you've ever done before. Would you agree, Carrie, that it's
100% different. Yep.
Yeah. So that's what we're going to chat about today. And she's going to give her kind of first-hand, very honest opinion about and experience about what it was like, what it was like being in the group with the other participants, what it was like having a chat with me every week on the video call, and then what she's learned about her body and how that's helped her going forward. So before we get into that, Carrie, can you give us a bit of firstly, welcome and thank you so much for joining me here.
Absolutely happy to be here.
Can you give us a bit of a background? Obviously, I know where you've come from because we've got to know each other over the last 12 weeks, but for those watching this, they don't have a clue who you are. So where you're from, when you were diagnosed with PCOS, and what that was like for you.
Yep. So I am 42 and I live outside of Boston. And I am the mother of two girls. One is 8 and one is 5. And so I didn't know I had PCOS until I tried to have kids.
Right.
And that was close to 10 years ago. So I had irregular cycles my entire life. I was on the birth control pills since the age of 16. Because of those, I had really bad acne as a kid and kind of got through all of that miraculously. And then I was kind of just, always was kind of felt like my body was never quite right, but it didn't really matter that much to me, to be honest. I wasn't really that overweight. I was kind of normal, whatever, until I tried to have kids. And then it became like a game changer for me. And when I was told I had PCOS, I had heard about it from a friend who had it before I even knew I had it. So when I heard that I had it, I was like really devastated at the time, to be honest. I remember like hysterically crying, which maybe you don't want me to say, but like I was like really hysterically crying.
No, I do say that. I was the same. When I got I remember getting into the car.
Yeah.
First of all, I Googled what is PCOS because it didn't really tell me too much about it. And then I bawled because I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be one of those barren women. And, that all those things go through because you don't know too much about it, right? Because did you get really told much about it?
No, not at all. I mean, It was basically, okay, you have this because you have like your hormone ratios are off and therefore you're going to go on Clomid and do this and that. I mean, it's like this like crazy amounts of information about what I'm going to do for fertility, but it wasn't much about PCOS at all. And in fact, I remember feeling so desperate because the friend that I knew who had it wasn't available to talk when I wanted her to talk. And she kind of got snippy over an email. Like, I can't talk right now, but I was so desperate for information. I kept like berating her with questions. And so that sort of became like the start of not being able to get information, to be honest. Like I would research it. And like you said, like you read all of this horrible stuff about it and you kind of think like, this is going to be me. I'm going to lose all my hair. I'm going to never have kids. I am going to be overweight. And like all of these things, sort of this picture of who you might become becomes like your picture of yourself. It's awful.
Or even if you are suffering from that at the moment, you don't actually get told that these things can be reversed. It's not a lifelong thing. Even if you have got hair loss or you are, facial hair or acne, it's like, actually, we can reverse that. It's not, this is not you for life. So
that's right. That's exactly right. And I did have some of those symptoms. I mean, I had gained weight, and I did have acne. And at the time, I hadn't lost any hair, although that's kind of happened a little bit to me now. Um, but so, like, I ended up going through fertility treatments, not doing anything really for PCOS, which I wish I'd known about you sooner, to be honest. So I could have done some things a little bit more naturally, because it was really stressful. The fertility stuff that we went through without addressing any of the PCOS stuff. It was really just straight fertility treatments.
and
Luckily,
that's common globally, and in our medical model, it is, okay, you've got PCOS, here's what we're going to do. We're going to treat you with maybe metformin they might start with, certainly then often Clomid, or another drug is called letrozole as well. And without kind of understanding what might be contributing to your hormones being out of balance. So is that insulin? Is that stress hormones? Is that thyroid condition? Is that inflammation? When we understand that, that's when we can actually get you ovulating back naturally. But in our medical world, they won't do those tests. They don't know what to give you in terms of diet or exercise or lifestyle. So if this is you going through the same thing as what Carrie went through, it's completely normal to go through that in the medical world. But what I'm saying is you need to look outside of that for that help, because you will not get that in the medical world, unfortunately, as it is.
Yeah, and I've continued to find that luckily I was able to get through the fertility stuff with a lot of heartache and stress. That was it could have been probably unnecessary if I had gone through this protocol before. But I didn't really change. They didn't tell me to change my eating. They didn't tell me to do certain exercise. There was no guidance at all, except take this medicine, shoot yourself with this needle, do this, do that, do that. So it was really, like I said, very fertility driven. And I got to an end result that was 2 beautiful children, but it was with, like I said, with probably down a path I didn't need to take. Who knows, right? So then, like, flash forward, kids, stress, job, craziness. I noticed, like, a year ago, I'm still on the pill, right? A year ago, I started my hair started shedding quite a bit. And I panicked, like completely panicked. And then I forgot about it for a while. And then I panicked again. And I started researching PCOS again, because I knew I had it, but I had kind of ignored it for years. And then that's where I saw this protocol online. After, obviously, there's just so many sites and so many people and so many opinions and so many diets and so many eat this and don't eat that. And it's really confusing. And it's really overwhelming as a person in, like, in Google world, with no real guidance from a doctor really at all. And I live in a really great city. I live in Boston. I mean, you'd think that there would be, like, all these PCOS specialists around here, but there really aren't. And I've even tried to go to an endocrinologist, and they're just not as knowledgeable. Maybe they are, but they don't give you the same time and information that you really need to be able to reverse some of those symptoms. So when I saw your protocol, and at first I was like, oh gosh, that's some money. It wasn't a lot. It actually was. I thought it was reasonable, so I will say that. But I was like, who the heck is Claire? And is she for real? And I really did. I mean, I love you, and I would speak to anybody about you now, but at the time I was like, I could be completely scammed. And so I remember going into my husband and I said, okay, here's how much it costs. He didn't even skip a beat, and he was like, just do it. And so I signed up that day or night or whenever it was. And I just kept my fingers crossed that I was going to get an email, and, like, that this was actually going to, like, come to fruition. And then I did, closer to the start of it was a couple weeks out. And then I got the email for the start, and then it started, and here we are.
Yeah, right. And that's what I want everyone to know, is that it's completely normal, because there is to feel like that, because there is, as you said, so much information out there. A lot of people who don't necessarily have a huge amount of scientific background, but maybe have experience with PCOS themselves. And so you're kind of like, oh, who do I trust? Who do I listen to? And also, why is there so much conflicting information? So why am I seeing someone say, eat this, another person say, don't listen to them, eat that? And so what have you learned now going through the protocol in terms of why that information might be quite different because there is not just one PCOS, right? So in the first weeks of the protocol, what we do is we go through and the PCOS path identifier, which is what I've created based on your symptoms and your blood test to identify, okay, is insulin effective for you? Is stress hormones, thyroid, inflammation? And then throughout the rest of the protocol, we actually, give you different advice based on what your different type is. So does that make more sense now to you, Carrie, after gone through it, why there's such differing information out there? Because actually different things work for different people.
Yes, it completely makes sense to me. And I'll tell you that I don't know how I would have grasped this information any other way than doing this protocol because of that. Because and in fact, nobody really talks about those different ways. I mean, you know that, right? Like it's not very well documented or known that there are like all of these different things that might be underlying in you. It could be insulin resistance or stress. And in fact, like halfway through the protocol, I think you probably remember, Claire, I was like, I know I ranked really high in the insulin resistance space, but I feel I think stress or adrenal was sort of my second.
Yeah.
But I sort of switched and I was like, you know what? I honestly think that pushed me over the edge with this PCOS thing. The stress caused most of my symptoms. I think my insulin is probably a little less of the cause than the stress is. And I then went back and thought through my life and when symptoms started happening more, and it was around stress, really stressful times. And so for those of you that are listening may not really and they're not all the same, as Claire said. And so just kind of going to the internet and researching, you're going to get very general information and it may or may not help you. And I guarantee you it's confusing and it will be so overwhelming that you won't stick to anything or do it. The changes won't be sustainable because you'll just keep researching and you get on this like hamster wheel of researching and then you try this and you do it for a week and then you do this for a week and then that for a week. And it's so overwhelming that I bet many of you listening probably are thinking, yep, I've been there. I've done that. I've done the research, the hours of research on PCOS and symptoms and ways to stop these symptoms like hair loss and acne and fertility. These are like things that are like cut us to our bone. You know what I mean? These are like heartbreaking symptoms. And so many of us spend so many hours researching them because we can't sleep and get anxiety over them.
Yeah.
And so this is a program that focuses you and gives you really clear, focused and direct things that you can do to impact those symptoms. And it's the first thing that I found like this that has been able to focus me. And I feel like I'll never turn back. I will never go back from what I've learned on this program. Awesome. It's been so invaluable.
So when we went through the first week with the type identifier for you, you said that you ranked really highly in insulin resistance. Had that ever been discussed with you before?
Never. Yeah. Never. I didn't honestly. I mean, I knew what it was because somebody I know thinks that they had it, or I don't know. But no doctor had ever my sugars were never flagged. My glucose was never flagged. I'm not pre-diabetic. Like I thought I was like, well, and no, it never even came up, to be honest with you, Claire, ever.
Yeah, and that's very common as well because as we talked about in the protocol, a lot of the testing that a doctor would use, like fasting blood glucose, as you said, was never out of range, or your HbA1c was never out of range, and that's really all they'll do until it does become out of range, and then they'll do something about it. But those two markers that they often do, the HbA1c and the fasting blood glucose, are just not sensitive enough to pick up those early changes in insulin. they'll pick it up when you're getting towards type 2 diabetes, okay? They'll definitely pick it up then, but we want to know well before that, because well before that is the time that your insulin's rising, and that's actually causing your testosterone to rise as well, and contributing to a lot of these symptoms, like, or not just your testosterone, but your luteinizing hormone, which controls your ovulations. That's how it's disrupting that. It's getting in and causing your oil glands in your skin to overproduce oil, which then causes the acne. Again, that it gets into the hair follicles and kills them, causing your hair to fall out. Same thing in your face, causing those little microvilli hairs to grow into the dark hairs as well. So it is, that's when we can actually get to when we actually recognize that insulin is an issue, where we do more kind of specific testing, or even use your symptoms. So in the type identifier, you didn't have any of the tests, did you? But we just used symptoms for you and then followed up with some testing.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I will tell you, I never knew sort of like what all the tests were that you should be getting to test for this stuff. And so the doctors are really like hesitant to do some of these sort of deep dive tests. I don't know why. And I even went to an endocrinologist after I started the protocol, because I had the appointment and I wanted to do some testing, and they did a few. I brought the whole list in, but they didn't do all of them. They wouldn't do all of them. And they sort of poo-poo it a little bit, but like I'm sort of, I mean, I've gone to acupuncture, I've been to functional doctors, so I'm definitely more of the mindset that that the sort of this Western, and so I've got sort of, I've worked at companies that I work with doctors, I work with nurses, so I'm sort of the mindset where like you've got to go further than.
Yeah. Oh, I think Carrie just dropped out, so we'll just wait for her to jump back on. Might have been an internet connection drop out. But yeah, that's what Carrie was saying about the doctors, not necessarily wanting to order these tests, is that that's often because they don't have the information, like, they're not necessarily keeping up with all the research, because they are so busy about what tests do pick up, say, the early stage insulin resistance. But also they're bound by insurance companies, they're bound by National Health in terms of what they can actually order. And so that is also one of the main reasons why they can't just go and order these things, is because they're not allowed. For example, it's like if they were ordering a thyroid panel, they can only order one thyroid marker, TSH generally, and only if that's out of range can they then order the rest. But we know that that's not actually giving you the full picture about what your thyroid is doing. So in the protocol, I actually help you go through and order those online if you're in the US and UK and Australia, and soon to be Europe as well, where I've kind of found these other online testing providers who use the laboratories, but it means that you can just go and order them yourself rather than having to wait and actually get someone to basically approve you to order those. So you can actually be in control of your own health, which is fantastic. And Carrie was going to say that that's exactly what she did. So she would, after she got poo-pooed by the endocrinologist, kind of was then able to go through and order her own testing. Welcome back.
Sorry, I don't know what happened.
I think it just dropped out. I just went through and explained to them what was how the reason for that being that often they're bound by insurance companies and National Health, what they can actually allowed to order, and also too because they're not necessarily able to keep up with all the research about that. And that is the very lucky thing, and I am very well aware of my privilege of being able to focus solely on PCOS. Not all doctors or endocrinologists, gynecologists, anyone gets the ability to focus just on this and be working with patients just in PCOS. So I'm very, very fortunate that I have that. I am able to specialise so much, and I'm able to keep up with all the research purely in PCOS and figure out what that is. And part of that is that I'm going through, I'm starting my PhD soon, and that means that I do have to keep up with all the research because I need to actually figure out what we're going to be doing as our kind of specific research angle. So that's why I'm saying that we then are able to go through, we're able to kind of bypass that and realize, okay, it's no point fighting kind of that system sometimes. Sometimes it's better actually just to outlay $100 to go and get that insulin assay done yourself through the online system that how I show you how to do that, those providers that do that online, and just take away that whole fight, because that's half the struggle and can really bring you down, is having to fight for your health. And it's like, it is draining. It is so draining.
It's so
So
draining.
yeah, so I'm all for just being like, if it's $100, if we can actually just, spend that money, outlay that, get it done, figure out what's actually the issue, and then go forward from there. And I know that you did that. Was it for your thyroid?
No, they just did the basic stuff for my thyroid. So they didn't even give me, I mean, I can't say they really did any. They did a couple of the testosterone ones, but they said it was probably affected by the birth control pill, because I'm scared as ever to get. I'm waiting for a couple more months of doing this before I get off it. But no, they didn't do really anything that specific on thyroid.
Yeah. And that's why I always say, people say to me, oh, what testing should I do before I join the protocol? And I'm like, it's actually better if you wait and go through and do the type identifier first.
Yeah.
And then we can figure out from your symptoms, especially for insulin resistance, there's a lot of symptoms there. Like for you, what were the main symptoms that came up for you for the insulin side of things?
Sluggish after I eat. Was one of the top ones. Weight around the belly is another one, and that came on. The inability to lose it was another one. Those were my three biggest ones. And then the hair thing, that was, that to me was like, that could have been any of them, but that was, those other three were sort of the insulin resistant.
And other very common ones that other people have is really bad, intense sugar cravings. That was certainly one.
Oh, I had that too. That's right. Yeah.
And the inability to go without food for more than 2 hours.
The hangry
attack.
That was the other one. That was the other one. I was very high on that. I'm not anymore. I can tell you, I am never, ever, ever hangry anymore. Never.
That's incredible, isn't it?
I can go till 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon and not even want anything. Literally not want anything. And that is freeing. That is very freeing. And that's not something, I actually thought I was very abnormal. My husband can go for hours and be like, oh shoot, I didn't eat. And I was like, what are you talking about? You didn't eat. Like it's constantly on my mind. I'll pack stuff just in case. And now I'm like that. So I'm now the irritating one. I'm like, oh no, neither did I. So it's very freeing in that way.
Yeah. So what else? So that was talking about, so one of the major things that you've experienced from that's one of the major sort of results for you, I guess. What have been the other kind of big changes for you, and why has that, knowing why that is, what have you learned about why that happens? Like, for example, the sugar cravings, have they subsided as well?
Yes, the sugar cravings are pretty much gone. And that's not to say that I didn't have cookies or whatever over, because some of that's habitual. And so you find yourself doing things out of habit, and actually
traditions we talked about a lot, right? And the protocol, but how is such a major thing. It's not just, changing your diet. It's not just about you and yourself, and your kind of control. It's about actually traditions and culture and so much around that. But also, as we talk about in the protocol, it's that I never expect you to give that up. That's not forever. It's like we can still have those treats, but it's knowing what's kind of, when it's acceptable and when it's like, okay, like that Christmas Day is a treat rather than Christmas Day ends up being like a week, a month, a whole, kind of a whole season, and how that can kind of, put you down the wrong path. So, so talk to me more about the sugar cravings then.
Yeah. So, if as you're following it, they actually disappear. And so things start to taste sweeter than they really are, or than they used to taste to you. And so you think you want that cookie, but then you have it and it's kind of gross. I was telling Claire over Halloween, because so I'm in the United States, and so we've got all these. I joined the protocol during like the worst tradition like time in the United States. It was like Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's. All of those holidays hit during my protocol. And so that was interesting. But I will say, so my kids go trick-or-treating around the whole neighborhood, and they get like pillowcases full of candy. And I was like, yep, I'm going to have a piece of candy, because I want a piece of candy, but I really didn't want a piece of candy. Like, I'm going to want a piece of candy. So I thought I did. I could not even stand the taste of the candy. I mean, it was disgusting. It was so sweet and sickly sweet, and I never thought I would say that. I can walk by bowls of candy at work. They look just gross to me. I mean, I'm honestly saying I do not even crave that stuff anymore. Um,
And what was it like for you previously? What would you have done previously?
well, so previously, I would get sort of this really strong craving after like eating lunch, for example. And I would get tired around 1 or 2 because I ate at 12. I could not go past 12. It was like if I made it to 12, I was like lucky. And then I would get these cravings after, and because I'd get really tired, and I thought that sugar would help, and or when I got really hangry, I had to eat the sugar because I had to get out of that state because it's kind of like not scary, but when you're in that state of kind of shakiness,
Mhm.
you want to get out of it quickly. And so I thought like eating loads of sugar would help. And so I broke that cycle for sure. And for those who are listening, it's not like I never have sugar because that would be a lie. Um, but I will tell you, it's not prevalent any.
Yeah. And it's not that dependence, right? It's not that. It's the same for me. I was the classic. I had to be, same as you. It was couldn't go past of, yeah, same as you. I'd be very lucky if I made it to 12
Yeah.
before lunch, and then I'd be so hungry, and then I would be fatigued sort of 1 or 2 p.m., and then my body would be like so craving just sugar so much by sort of 3 p.m. And I knew better, and this was the hardest thing because I was like, God, I'm a nutritionist. I know better than this, but I can't stay away from it. And I just was berating myself because I just thought it was a self-control issue. And I was like, oh, and I think that's the hardest thing is that we're told that it's our own problem if we can't kind of control what we're eating and we're putting on weight, it's all our fault. But it's not. It's a physiological reason, and this is because of you and I both had some insulin resistance, and this is what your body drives you to do. It's what's happening is that blood sugar after you've eaten in the morning, it's spiking up and then it's coming crashing down, and same thing it's doing it after lunch, and that's why you were getting that shaky and jitteriness is because actually your blood sugar gone too low. And so it wasn't you thinking you needed sugar, it was your body actually driving you to do that because that is the quickest thing to get that blood sugar back up. So it's all that, it's much more internally driven than we think and what we're led to believe that is just our own lack of self-will, which it is completely not.
Yeah.
So just for anyone that's listening, this is when we actually get it right in terms of figuring out, okay, yeah, insulin's not working properly. And maybe it's not even clinical insulin resistance. Maybe it's just that your insulin's just not operating completely optimally. And once we kind of figured that out, then we can actually put in place the right dietary steps, so the right food for you to eat. And it's often not massive changes. It's often just tweaking a few things and then that kind of levels out. And it's very apparent within the first couple of weeks about how that's working. Like I think by about after we make the first dietary change in week 3 of the protocol, and about by week sort of 4 or 5, everyone's already like, wow, I can't believe I don't actually have sugar cravings anymore, and I'm not getting those hangry attacks. It's quite and we see it right in the Facebook group. Everyone's like, whoa, I didn't realize, I never knew that I could go without sugar. I just thought that was me. I thought that I just had this sweet tooth. I never realized that it was to do with the way that my blood sugar was operating.
Yeah.
So that's just and then so from that, then what else have you noticed in terms of like, so you're saying that your energy levels, you were getting sort of fatigued mid-afternoon, did that change as well?
Oh yeah, I and in fact it's changed so much that I don't get as tired at night. And so that's sort of like the second thing for me. So like I've never been a night owl, but with the changes that I've made, I'm actually a little more energetic at night than I used to be. And so now I have to make a conscious effort to go to sleep at a decent time, because that for me was the second thing that I've done that I didn't realize was impacting me in my body and my hormones, and my sugar cravings and my insulin resistance so much. And when we started doing glucometer testing, I was afraid of that, very afraid of that. But now I'm sort of almost weirdly addicted to doing it. So like I did it today just to see like what my fasting glucose was in the morning, because I have gotten terrible sleep over the last week. I've been a little bit sick, and so I haven't slept well. And I noticed that in the mornings my sugar is higher, which then changes your whole day. It changes your whole day. And I never, like, I mean, we all know sleep is important, but I did not realize how connected it was for me having PCOS. And so now, so the last 2 nights I've made a real conscious effort to go to bed early. Like last night I was in bed by 8:30 and my sugar was much lower in the morning. So, but it took 2 nights of solid sleep, two
Yeah.
nights to correct a couple nights of bad sleep.
Yeah.
So, and my day is completely different when I have a good night's sleep. And again, these are things that we hear and that we know about in general, but I don't think before this, I never knew how connected it was with me personally because of this. And now I do.
Yeah.
So it's been really helpful in that way.
That's good. So in the protocol, what I do is I give you like a new module every week. So I think, I can't remember what week it was, maybe week 7, we do sleep for insulin resistance. And then, so what I do is I basically give you a video explaining why it's so important for, say, insulin resistance. I explain the research about lack of sleep, what they've done with studies where they actually took different groups of people and they, in a hospital setting, and they reduced their sleep down, so they would wake them up. And what they found was that, more than 4 nights of 5 hours of less of sleep reduce their insulin sensitivity by about a third. So if you can think about this in kind of pictorial view, imagine you've got 100 insulin molecules, insulin receptor. We've just gone and taken away 33 of those. 33.33. So we have just taken, so we've only got sort of 66 left to do the job of what 100 should be doing. So you can imagine how that impacts your body. And then it also makes us crave more sugar and carbohydrate, and it also raises our stress hormone as well. So all of this can really, what you were saying is, can really disrupt your day. So you imagine you have had a poor night's sleep, you get to work, someone says something snarky to you, and then suddenly you're off on this whole kind of, your mind starts going, and you're obviously feeling really down about this. And then that's when you obviously, your body's like, oh, how can I make you feel better? I know, sugar always makes you feel better. So it's like, right, sugar cravings start because already your body's craving more simple carbohydrates and sugars because it's lacking sleep. Plus your insulin sensitivity's down a little bit as well. So then it's this vicious cycle of you then being kind of driven to go and be like, oh, why not have that, piece of red velvet cake that's out in the tea rooms right now, which it is. I work in this amazing kind of co-working space, which is incredible. I love it, but it also means that it's like working in a corporate office where you have people bringing in things every single day. So it's like that's always in front of you, and generally, like if you're not craving it, like what Carrie's saying, she can walk straight past a bowl of candy in the office. But when you had sleep and the other things going on, then that's when it's like, okay, this is when your body's driving you to want to go and get that stuff. So that's why it is so connected. So why actually it can make us crave that, can make your insulin sensitivity so much worse. And then when we're eating that sugar, the reason why sugar is so connected to insulin resistance is because it's the most likely to kind of spike up that blood sugar. So this is how that works. Sugar is the most simple form of carbohydrate, and it just spikes that blood glucose up. So, and then obviously making that insulin resistance worse in turn.
Yeah.
And we talked before about, you mentioned the glucometer testing. So do you want to explain to just everyone what we do there?
Yep. So they scare the living daylights out of you and tell you that you're going to be pricking yourself with a needle every morning. I almost quit. I hate needles. Anyway, so I put that off for a little while. Although I put it off. You gave us a couple weeks to get the glucometer, and I maybe gave it a couple more, but I did get it in time for the module. And so Claire had us testing our sugar in the morning to see what our blood glucose was right when you get up. So after fasting for the night. And then we tested it before lunch and then we ate lunch, and then we tested it after lunch a couple of times to see how our sugar was doing after we ate. And that was to give us a baseline. And then we started adding different carbohydrates in to see, because the dietary changes didn't say absolutely no carbohydrates. It was certain ones you could, were better for you than others. And then this glucometer testing gave us a better idea personally for each person, because everybody's different, which carbohydrates actually worked okay with your body and which you might want to stay away from. So you would have, a potato, and then you would test your sugars, or the next day you might have quinoa. And so you did these things and tested to see if your blood sugar came down as it should. And Claire gives you all the right ranges for that, so as you're testing or after you test, whether or not those carbs were good for you at that moment in time. And the other thing, just to a caveat, is that, and what's nice, Claire, is throughout the protocol, you're always like, these things can change. And so you have to kind of keep looking at them. It's not always forever. And certain changes you might be able to tweak along the way. But the amount of information that we got was enough to give us a baseline of where we are today and give us the right tools so that we can continue this on our own after the protocol and kind of keep up with it. Like I said, I'm still glucometer testing, and so I'm still trying to figure out if certain foods. And I've kind of gone off. I'll even do it after fruit to see, like, did that fruit spike my. So I sort of went beyond the potato and the quinoa. And then if I had something, I think during the protocol during Christmas, I had this piece of crazy coconut cake, and I was just curious, like, what did this do to my blood sugar? So
And
it's
it's
just
so amazing to see, even within the group, like when we do it on the Q&A, like some women, their blood sugar will spike hugely when they have a sweet potato, but not when they have a potato. And it's like those two foods are so similar from a like structural and physiological point of view that it's like, wow, that's so. And you would never read anywhere that would have a different effect individually, but that's what we're seeing, is that different carbohydrates have different effect for different people. And that's why, although I give you the less likely to spike your insulin foods, and then it's up to you then to use the glucometer testing to check that. And this is what I do instead of just being like, okay, we're going to put you all on the ketogenic diet, which is no carbohydrate at all, is like, well, actually, I don't think that that's necessarily the best thing, and it's not necessary for everyone with PCOS to be on, even everyone with insulin resistance. The only time we would get someone on a ketogenic diet as if their blood glucose was spiking with every single amount and form of carbohydrate that we throw at them and we try at them. And then it would be like, yep, you know what, your blood sugar is not handling this at the moment. We need to actually get you onto ketogenic diet for a period of time and then kind of bring you off and take you back on until your insulin improves. And this is what we mean by that it's not forever. It's actually, that's why exactly why you're keeping on testing your using a glucometer to see, has my blood glucose improved? Has actually, can I now tolerate things that I couldn't do, 3 months ago when I was starting out on this? So this is why it's not forever. And I want to make it that you can eat as many foods as possible, because that is the most sustainable long-term dietary approach. So it's like, what can you actually tolerate? What's going to be, rather than just blanket removing things because, maybe they might, your blood glucose might spike. It's like, well, actually, let's just figure out and see whether it does. And if it doesn't, then it's probably okay for you at the moment. So
it's very personalized. So this is not like a one size fits all protocol. It really is. And it felt like that, it felt very personalized to me. And just a little clue for anybody joining your next protocol: join the live calls, because some people opt to listen to them once they're recorded, so that gives you more time with Claire if you get on the call, because it's just Claire, and I was not told to say this, but you're one of the smartest people that I've met. And you have these very scientifically backed answers to people that have had these problems for years, and some of us decades. And you're able to put it in bite-sized chunks that we're able to digest over the course of 12 weeks. I've told so many people about this. I wish I had a place where I could say, you know, if like, I wish I knew more people that had this so I could point them in your direction, because and I probably do. People don't talk about it.
Yeah.
Um, there are probably way more people that have this that I know that just haven't said that to me. But if I ever meet somebody that has this, they're coming your way, because it was really, my acupuncturist, when I was telling her about this, and you know, she's a functional person as well, and so she's like, this is a gift to you. And I said, that's exactly the word I was looking for. This has been such a gift to me, to have you to share all this knowledge with people that have been struggling for so long, really.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. Thank you. That's so nice. It honestly makes my day to hear, not even my day, but my week, you know, when it's like, okay, this is actually, you know, helping people. And this is exactly why I created it, because this is what I went through for 6 years. Trying exactly what you said at the start there, Google searching, the trying. And I had a science background. I'd done my degree in nutrition and exercise science. And I was like, God, if I can't work this out, how on earth can anyone else? Like,
that's awful.
Got all the information I should need. And unfortunately, I didn't. It was only when I kind of went forward and did some more training in functional medicine, that was when I was like, oh, okay, right, now I get it. And that's also why, even if you're working with someone who, say, is a nutritionist, a degree qualified, why also they might not know a lot of this information, because you don't learn this in your degree. You definitely don't learn it in your degree. It's only, through kind of further training that I did. And a classic example of this was, I just had a friend who, one of her friends found out she had PCOS and insulin resistance, and she got referred to a dietitian, and the dietitian gave her a standard kind of American diet to follow with 6 servings of, carbohydrates, including kind of white bread. And I think her snack she could have was a Kit Kat, because it was like a low GI. And then she, my friend referred it to me. I started working with her, and we found out that actually a lot of that stuff was spiking her blood sugar incredibly. And it still wasn't improving her sugar cravings or her, same as her hangry attacks. And so when we actually changed her diet to be a lot more modified towards something who had insulin resistance, then she was able to kind of reverse her symptoms, which was for her, it was weight gain, that sugar cravings, the hangry attacks, the fatigue.
Oh, yeah.
So,
in fact, my when I went to the endocrinologist, she was like, I'd like to set you up with either a nutritionist or a dietitian. I was like, no, absolutely not. I've been there. I've done that. I'm good. I've got my plan. I know what I can eat. I know what spikes my blood sugar. I know what's good for me. I completely flat out said, no, I'm not doing it anymore. I've gone to way too many of those sort of regular, I'm sure they add value to people that don't have this, but I don't want to be given, a low calorie diet and to be told, to eat, 6 servings, whatever they tell you. I'm so done with that. So I just said, no, thanks. I'm good. I've been working with somebody, online, and I know what I can eat and how much of it. And I don't actually need to measure, because I'm not eating half as much as I used to, because I'm not as hungry. So, it's the easiest plan, because you don't really have to think that much about food. It's freeing once you get to know what your body's doing. You don't have to think about it all day, because you're not hungry, you're not hangry, you're not craving the sugar. And no dietitian, they'd be like, oh, have a piece of wheat toast with, whatever, and you're hungry by 10.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
And I agree. It's the most freeing thing for me. I used to go into meetings at, petrified of meetings at 11 a.m. because I knew that I couldn't, and this is my corporate job, I was like, had to be like on form, especially with clients and stuff. And I was like, God, I can't even concentrate, because all I can think about is food. Like, I'm so hungry. And it is so freeing then, as you said, just to be able to be like, oh gosh, it's 2:00. I'm not actually that hungry, but oh, okay. Like, it's actually, so liberating to not be bound by that eating, or being able to go out for a hike, and not be like, oh, it's going to be more than 2 hours long, so I better make sure I take my snack pack, and otherwise I'm just going to be, and I was, I was awful to be around, like, and I hate it, because I didn't have any control over it, but I was
awful.
I was a really nasty person when I was hungry. And so, I was snappy. And so it's much nicer now, like emotionally, to be a lot more controlled with
It's
that.
a freeing thing. It really is. That's probably the most freeing thing of the whole protocol for me, is that not needing to eat so much all the time, every hour, every other hour.
And so what did you find the most beneficial? Was it the Q&A calls? We haven't really talked about that, but what we do every week is we have, obviously you get the module with the video and any PDFs and all the resources that you need to complete the task. And then every week we have a live video call, which is like this, right? Like I can actually, whoever's online, I can bring them on and be like, hey, you can submit questions prior if you're not going to be there. And we change time zones because we take people on all over the world. I'm in New Zealand, Carrie's in Boston. This is a very global program we had. I can't remember how many different countries we had this year, but it was about
a lot.
15. It was like, so we had UK, Europe, Australia, South Africa, Finland, like everywhere. Jamaica, we had China, India this year as well.
Do we have like Dubai or something? I feel like there was somebody from like tons of different countries represented.
So we have it in different time zones every week to make sure that you get at least a couple of opportunities to be there online. And as Carrie said, try and be there, because it is, this is, if the closest thing kind of to personalized support you're going to get is being able to come on and we chat about what your issue is, because often it's not just a simple question and answer. It's like we need to actually go back and forth and figure out exactly what's going on and help you. And it's not always just a scientific question. It's like, hey, I'm really struggling here, Claire, help me. What can I do about this? Like we talked about through the holidays, right? Like your protocol, as you said, was the hardest time to do it because you have all the holidays, but actually the best time to do it as well, because you're also going through all that kind of stuff. And it's like, if we can sit there and actually talk about that at the time, like, okay, how do I get around this where I'm not, I don't need sugar, I'm not necessarily craving it, but it's that pressure, the social pressure to have it because of it's holidays and it's Christmas, and I learned about
tradition.
I learned about cookie, what's it called?
The neighborhood cookie swap.
The cookie swap. Okay. I learned lots about the cookie swap this protocol.
There was one other girl who knew about this.
Melissa.
Melissa knew about it. Yep.
We had great chats about that, because it's very foreign to me in New Zealand, because New Zealand is summer at Christmas time. We probably don't have the same kind of traditions, and we also, because we're a Commonwealth country, we probably don't follow the US as much. But so if anyone that doesn't know what cookie swaps are, cookies is where someone will bake a batch of cookies, like Carrie might bake peanut butter cookies, and then other people will bake different flavors, and you go and then you swap them, so you get lots of different varieties. So when people come to visit, you can offer them lots of different variety of cookies.
That's right. Yep.
And so it's like, well, when there's that sort of thing and it's happening in your community and all your friends are doing it, then you don't want to be like, oh, I'm not doing that because I'm not eating sugar. It's like, well, how can I still participate and get the social engagement out of that, but then not necessarily be, having them in my house, or, if that's still an issue for you, or how can I can actually still contribute and be part of that while sort of also still sticking to the principles of the protocol as well. And as we've mentioned many times in this video, it's not like you're never going to have a cookie again. As you said, we always talk about like having those mindful treats, enjoying the stuff, enjoying that, but enjoying it, and also being able to accept that yourself, because a lot of us have come from a long history of dieting where it's like, oh my God, I had one cookie, like, oh, holy shit, like the world's ended and I've fallen off the wagon, and now I'm going to I might as well just ruin the day or ruin the week, whatever, and start on Monday or start tomorrow. And so how we actually get out of that cycle and actually enjoy treats and really enjoy that food, but able to kind of focus and be like, that, you know what, that is fine for me to have that, and that's more than okay for me to do that. But also now I'm going to focus on having a great next meal, and really being able to get out of that. So, so it's not just all the scientific stuff, it's actually a lot of kind of
very practical. Yeah.
Right. Kind of that mindset stuff. So was there anything else that you found particularly helpful for you, that you learned about your body, or that you found?
I just found I found the weekly calls really helpful. I know I've said that already, but it was like this. So you would pull me on and actually ask me how I was doing, and if I was struggling, I would say that. And we got to know each other. So there were other people that joined the calls regularly. And so we kind of knew one another through not only the Facebook, which was nice, and some people IM'd kind of each other on the back end. Like if you heard somebody's story and it resonated with you, you'd oftentimes kind of connect and talk about commonalities that you might have. And that there's a sense of community in that. And for those of us who sort of researched this when we first were told we had it and felt like we were going to, take on all of these terrible symptoms, and our youth and our beauty and all these other things would kind of deteriorate. You see online these beautiful, this beautiful group of women. I mean, there were, I think, 100 some odd people in our group, and lots of people, beautiful, beautiful, every one of them. And it makes you feel like, I mean, inside and out, like stories that came out, about people and the struggles that they had been through, and what they were trying to overcome was just beautiful. And it gave you a sense that you're not alone, and that there are others that are in this with you trying to learn. And I mean, we've seen so many positive stories come out. I mean, like, even when you posted the other day, the wheel of progress, you heard a couple people chime in like, "Oh my gosh, this was the best Christmas ever because I wasn't overwhelmed with this or that, with anxiety."
The anxiety and the guilt and the shame and everything
Yeah.
that comes with that. Yeah.
It's funny, Claire, speaking of anxiety, and I just realized this like yesterday, I think. Because I'm an anxious person. I feel like I've been for a long time, but I can honestly say, and I wish my husband were on this call because I would like you to ask him. I think my anxiety is like gone. I don't really have much at all. And I don't know why. It might be because I feel empowered, because I have this knowledge, or maybe it's physical. Maybe there's something that I'm doing that's helping. Maybe it's a mixture of both. But I'm not feeling overwhelmed or anxious. Like I'm not saying all the time I feel perfect, but that's definitely gone down for me. And I know a couple other people mentioned that along the 12 weeks, but I just
I think
realized it for myself.
the other story I can think of is on my website. I think it's Hallie's. She was the same thing. And it is, I would say it's both physiological and psychological. One, as you said, it's that not being on that hamster wheel of Google searching all the time, being like, A, what's going to happen, or B, what do I do about this? And trying one thing for a week and then being like, oh, I don't know if this works, and then trying the next thing, like buying a supplement because you've heard someone work for someone somewhere, and so you buy it and then use it for a week and you're like, oh, I don't know if this works. And then you're always kind of constantly searching for that next thing that might work. Whereas knowing, kind of, you type in what works for you now does definitely help that. But I think the other thing too is that we know that anxiety and depression are both hugely linked with our gut-brain axis, our brain and inflammation, but also in estrogen dominance as well. And often this happens when we've got high levels of testosterone. Testosterone is converted into estrogen, and when that increases, and then so it's called estrogen dominance or estrogen excess, and that can also lead to high levels of anxiety as well. So there's lots of things that could be going on for different individuals. It could be different for different people, but that is, that is possibly the physiological reason why that's happening as well. So that's great.
The other thing too I want to mention, because when I joined, the hair loss, I was shedding, and I know that that's like one of the harder symptoms of this, along with probably fertility, but not to judge everybody else's, but those are probably for me the two hardest ones. But when I joined, it was the hair. I felt like I was like losing my hair, like it was coming out a lot. Again, I don't know if this is psychological or if this is true. I'm not worried about it anymore. And the hair thing, the hair cycle takes so much longer to recognize. So I'm not saying all of a sudden my hair is exactly as thick as it was, but I'm not worried about it, which I think is helping because I'm not shedding as much at all. And so it might be a combination of my stress level has dropped, and therefore it's impacted me somehow. So
That's
I'm
great.
very hopeful about that.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's really, really good. So yeah, well, thank you so much for coming on and talking with me. It's been so helpful, and I hope that this has helped anyone that's kind of thinking, God, what is this program, and like, is it worth it? Because that's the thing. I mean, I think about this all the time when I'm doing stuff, other programs, whether it's business sort of things or whatever. You're like, oh, as you said at the start, is it a scam? Is it worth the investment? Is it worth my time? And what am I really going to get out of this? So I think that what you've explained has been really
it's worth anybody's time. I'm telling you, if you're listening to this and if you're on the fence, just do it. Please do it. I beg you. It has made such an impact on my life. And I know others as well in my group. And so, I mean, I can always be a reference for you, Claire. If you ever wanted to send anybody my way that is on the fence, don't be on the fence. It's the best thing I did for myself. And I wish I found you a long time ago. You're a saint. I mean, you're doing work that is helping so many people. Like I said, we can't find this where we are. And I'm in like a huge medical hub, and so, this is a gift. This was a gift. Gift to myself, gift from you. You're just you're a gift to the community for sure. So I thank you. And I will do this anytime you ask because I'm such a proponent of it. So,
oh, thank you, love. That's very kind. So yeah, but and as I said, what makes me get up in the morning is hearing these kind of stories, because for me that's like, there's still, like all of us, we all have pretty shit days, and to be able to get on here and chat to you and here and the Facebook group and talking live on the Q&A every week and being able to talk and make real connections with you and the rest of the participants, that's what I love, and that's why I do what I do. So thank you so much for sharing your story with us. It's been and great to talk to you again. We've been
so nice.
We haven't had we finished before Christmas, and it's been about 3 weeks without Carrie.
So nice to talk to you.
Yeah, good. Awesome. Well, you have a lovely rest of your Sunday night, and
thank you.
And we'll chat to you again soon.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.